plug your phone in. I look tired. I'm getting old, guys. She's getting old. Bro, Miami will really have you fucked up because you'll be like, am I old? Like, is 14, because it's sex trafficking. you know, it's sex trafficking. So it's like there's a distorted idea of youth because like 14-year-olds are in the club. So you have a 14-year-old in the club with a 25 and you're like, that 25 looks, oh, anyways, let me stop. I'm too old for this shit. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Vainglory, the CIA, and Hormozi. I can't keep Hormozi out of my mouth. Leon, we're listen. I'm just going to ask questions today. These are just speculations and curiosities, okay? And I'm going to talk about we're going to talk about the 60s, my favorite. We're going to talk a little bit about Kurt Cobain. We're going to talk a little bit about Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix and do. Come on, baby, light my fire. What's his name? Try to let my light on fire. Jim Morrison. I couldn't think of his name. The CIA has always inserted big kids into the table. Okay? And anytime a revolution begins, our lovely government makes sure adults are present to monitor our behavior. Okay? So I'm going to start by talking about the 60s, and you got to hold my hand. Follow along. I have a special place for 60s and 70s music. You just threw a pebble and anywhere you looked, whatever you were looking for, the music was phenomenal. You had Motown, you had folk, you had Simon and Garfunkel, James Taylor, Diana Ross, James Brown, Cher, Sonny. I mean, everywhere you turned, music as a guitarist was lighting up the world. Television was funny and hilarious. And then there was serious drama and there was theater. You had Laurence Olivier on Broadway. Everywhere you looked, art was alive. And, can I tell you something very deep and personal to me? I recently joined a church, and I believe that my spirit was an angel watching over the 60s and 70s. This is just something I've gotten in prayer and fasting, but I believe that I was there as a spirit watching over the generations, and I believe that my spirit actually guided some people to the other side. I know this is a weird thing to say, but I know if you're watching this, you've experienced some weird stuff in your life and some spiritual stuff you can't explain. And so I have a special place for the 60s and 70s, Christopher Walken, Deer Hunter. I mean, there's just so much. Like, it's just, this is crazy. Jane Fonda. And when we now are in the 2000s, it's come out. Gloria Steinem was the CIA. She was there as a revolutionary, but she was actually there on assignment by the government. She says it herself. She said it. I didn't say it. She said it. Okay? There's so many different documentations about Jim Morrison's father was part of naval intelligence. I'm not the one making this up. You can Google it, babe. Jimi Hendrix is working with Timothy Leary to build a secret drug that hypnotized the population. Some people say that Morgan Freeman is Jimi Hendrix. I'm not going to go as far as to say, but the similarities are there. And if you watch the Mission Impossible movies, not to take it too far on a tangent, but it's nothing to change somebody's face. It's nothing, if someone has the right proportions, it's nothing for Ethan Hunt to have a face transplant and a freaking voice modulator. That movie's 25 years old, 30 years old. Janis Joplin. You know, these singers, a lot of theories and a lot of evidence, circumstantial, right? Because it's not proven, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that these people were related to the government, working for the government, and sitting in at the table with the revolutionaries, pushing narratives, pushing music, pushing frequencies onto the youth to control the population. That's not, am I saying anything too wild off the wall? No, this is stuff we all have heard or seen or read. The 82nd Airborne, every goddamn last one of them is a little bit crazy. What the hell did they do to them out there? Every single last person I ever met was in the 82nd, and I have a brother-in-law in the 82nd. Something happened. I actually had a boyfriend in high school whose brother was in the 82nd, and he was weird. And then my husband's brother, he's weird, and they weren't even in the military at the same time. So, you know, something's going on. And so when we look at this stuff with the CIA, they are always inserting themselves into our media. In fact, I think at this point, I'll go as far as to say they control our media at this point. It's like overt. It's obvious. They're not even trying to pretend that they don't control it. So this might be a little embarrassing to admit, but I feel as though my revolution was social media. It wasn't as cool as Woodstock, okay? It wasn't that cool. But that was our revolution. You could pick up your phone and you could Google anything. And you could become an expert literally just by being an ADHD, ADD psychopath. You could literally go down a deep, 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 deep hole and learn and then share your unfiltered opinion and modality and services right on the phone. It was amazing. You know, I spent 10 years using my phone to connect to healers across the world, to connect to business experts across the world, to learn how to heal myself and to start a business. And it was freedom. It was a revolution. We were making money, and it was fun, and it was free, and it was vibration. So with my commentary on the CIA, I already laid it down. Are you really silly enough to think that the CIA hasn't laid down some more operatives into the system? Babe. You know, because I don't know how you guys feel, but it feels harder than ever on social media. It doesn't feel like a fun revolution. It feels like more pressure than a 9-to-5. And the thing is, you guys want to hear a personal story? I've tried to get a 9-to-5. You know, people say to you, once you go on social media, if you have any kind of a struggle, which I've had, go get a job. People love to be cruel. And in my Michael Jackson video, I didn't even talk about that part. I could go on and on for hours about that movie. I already have. My poor husband's had to deal with it. But the cruelty that people exhibit is really, really something to behold. And I'll tell a personal story. Your girl Jinder did try to get a job that was not related to social media. And can you guess how many exact weeks I lasted? So once you're out here, you're kind of committed to the plot. You know, I have a beef with women because of the Beckys of the world. Yeah, Becky, if you're watching this, stick it where the sun don't shine. I had a real Becky in my life. You know, I made a lot of success on social media over the years. Millions of dollars, impact beyond the money, beyond the money, because money is just a byproduct. And honestly, I should have made a lot more. I got screwed over on a lot of money. I got stolen from, the whole thing. But it's more than that. And I look at Michael Jackson, it's so much more than the money. It's the impact. Hundreds of millions of people were impacted by my videos. And the Michael Jackson movie, I'll talk about it here. It impacted me so much because maybe I thought I was alone in the suffering of the cruelty of the world. And I don't even want to say maybe, I did think I was alone in the suffering of the cruelty. And then I watched these intimate documentaries of Michael Jackson and the way he felt. And again, let me stop. I do not think I am as talented as Michael Jackson or anything. Like, let me just like really quick stop and say, I would say that I'm on like a Cher level, you know what I mean? Like Cher with enough makeup, lipstick, contour, and some, choreography. Yeah, we could do a Cher moment, right? But I'm not going to go as far to say a Michael. However, I was blown away by how deeply he was wounded by you, the public. How dehumanized he felt by you, the public. And I absolutely felt that level of despair in my own life, particularly around some very traumatic things that I went through online. I've shared my whole life online. And so I got to a certain place in my business where I thought that I could be the gray man. And I remember so vividly, I had just started a 40-day water fast, and my neighbor, who's like a total prepper, the coolest guy, I love him so much. Like, he's closest to family I have. Like, if something went down, this guy, you could trust him. And he said, Ginger, maybe it's time for you to be the gray man. Maybe it's time for you to just, be there in the background. You know, you got into the success, you have your kids. You just have to fit in. Like, essentially, like he wasn't saying it negative. He was like trying to help me because I was suffering. Like, I was in pain at the ridicule and the criticism and the hate that I was receiving. And so I did. I did. I went, and I know a lot about technology, and I know a lot about AI and tools and agents and bots and blah, de blah. And so I went and I worked in technology. But when you have a magnificent light, no matter how much you try to hide under a bun and glasses, which is what I tried to do, and turtleneck sweaters, that light, a demon at HR will identify the light. They can't, that's their sole job in life, is to snuff out light. That's the sole purpose of HR. Okay? And, the cruelty of it, trying to just be a gray man in the background. You can't. The ones of us who, you guys say, you're anointed. You know what? If you think I'm anointed, hire me to be your coach, okay? Because the anointing is coming with a lot of burden. And if you want to share it with me, friend, you want to share the oils with me? I don't appreciate this, like, these vain compliments or the shallow compliments. Because at the end of the day, I watched the Michael Jackson movie, and he goes, his mother said, shine your light for all to see. What did Jesus say to do? And I had a client say to me last week, Ginger, you really get too offended by what people say. And then I go ahead and I listen to Michael Jackson, and he said, there was a story he told about, he was at an airport with his family, and this woman recognized his family. She's like, oh, it's the Jacksons, it's the Jacksons. She's all excited. And she goes, where's little Michael? Where's little Michael? And this is him telling the story. Someone says, there he is right there. And she looks at him and goes, what happened? Your skin is so bad. When will you learn to start treating the anointed like we're human? When will you learn to integrate your light? Anymore, I don't, this is just personal feelings. I don't feel like you treat me like I'm a person. Most of you don't share my work. You don't publicly comment. You don't like my stuff, but you DM me. And most of you don't have any interest in supporting me where it matters by hiring me. And I look at Michael Jackson and I say, I see why the CIA keeps winning. You know, I wanted to go more into the Hormozi thing, but my husband's like, stop talking about that. You're going to get us murdered. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I love my life. But it's so obvious why the CIA wins and why everything sucks. Because you support that over the truth every time. Prince, Michael, Kurt Cobain. You know, Courtney Love, this is some secondhand stuff. I know the stuff I was talking about with the 60s, I know because I've read. What about Courtney Love's dad being in the CIA? How is somebody going to have a drug overdose and blow their head off at the same time? Huh? But you certainly sold out Courtney Love's songs and bought her albums, didn't you? I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm no saint. But the begging for a better world when you do not make the world better, you do not support when it's needed, that's where it matters. That's why we're here. Because when it counts, you just say, well, I have no power. But the places that you do have power, you choose to not act. You do have power over your health. You do have power over what you put in your mouth. You do have power as to where you put your money. Those things you do have power over, but you choose to empower the darkness. That's a you choice. And then out of the same side of your mouth, you cry to God as to why you're not being blessed with your favor. Tell you something right now. The anointed path has not been easy, but there's a glow that comes from in me that cannot be purchased because I choose to make decisions that are not easy, but they are the right decision. Every time. Every time. And that can't be purchased. And if you started making choices that actually align to the right, we would have a different world very quickly, very fast. Instead, you choose to look someone dead straight in the eye who's asking questions about, why does Hormozi have a government work for 4 years out of college? Who gave the money to the Hormozi to make him the #1 podcast in the world and the #1 business entrepreneur? Why is Shelby Sapp in Washington, D.C.? These things are right in front of your face. And you still choose to support that. Depart from me, I never knew you. Last thing I want to hear when I go to the pearly gates. Because for me, it's that serious. For me, this is a soul. This is about my soul. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe you live for today. I don't. Yeah, of course, I live to be, take care of my family and these things, but There's a bigger vision on me, that's far beyond this day-to-day life. And maybe that happens when you see death. Maybe the experiences I've had with my mom dying, with me almost dying, surgeries. Shoot. Most women don't know. Let me be very sensitive how I say this. The act of childbirth, that's the natural act of childbirth, and I don't mean to take away from anyone who has to have a C-section or an emergency birth or anything. Not my intention. The act of creating life with no medication brings a woman to the brink of life and death itself. And when you rip a woman's ability to feel that from her, you take something from society. These are my opinions, not meant to hurt anyone's feelings. Don't get bold confused with proud. Do not get bold confused with proud. There's a humility to me that you could not even fathom. And we have this world where women aren't feeling death when they touch their baby's life. 2 home births? Oh, honey. When I tell you that my 3rd child, he was born like this, facing up at 10 pounds. Both his fists were at his face. He came out fighting. When I tell you that I left my body and went somewhere and grabbed him in my arms and brought him back into my body, and then I grabbed him and he was born into my arms in the water, that's a true story. And experiences like that, you can't take that from me. And Cam Newton said it, women lose their value when they have kids. Well, let me tell you something, Cam. Katherine Jackson raised 10 children. One of them went on to be the biggest selling record of all time. And like 5 of them are some of the biggest artists of all time. She has no value? That woman, I bet you, I didn't do the research, but I'm sure she didn't have any epidural. I'm sure she did that right in the back room. You mean to tell me that means nothing? There's nothing there. You don't see it? Sir, I'm sorry that you're so disconnected from God. How lonely is it there where you are? So, the CIA, the CIA has implanted itself into everything for at least 50 years. We know. I mean, I have very strong evidence before that, but, during World War II, Ronald Reagan being part of, go to the Reagan Library. Ronald Reagan is part of, propaganda films and is then the propaganda president, give one for the Gipper. This stuff goes back. And if you really want to refuse to see, when you get cordoned off like cattle, for my Jewish audience, you guys know I love the Jews. I've got the Jewish blood in me. There's a book. It's called Night. It's by Elie Wiesel. Now, a lot of people have questions about the Holocaust these days, including me. I may have done some research, and was it 6 million? I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying I saw 232,000. I'm just saying. That's what the Red Cross wrote. So we have questions. Israel's lost a lot of its luster. And I got an Ashkenazi son. But you read a book like Night by Elie Wiesel. He talks about a character in the very beginning of the book A man comes frantic to his town. They're killing us. They're killing us. Don't get on the train. They're murdering us. You're crazy. He's crazy. He's nuts. According to Elie Wiesel, out of the 16 people in his family, he's the only one left. So history has a tendency to repeat itself. And if everything that we read about the Holocaust is true, and Hitler was as bad as they say, and 6 million Jews were gassed and burned, why don't you listen to your own leaders in Elie Wiesel when the same exact playbook's being thrown down on us now? Taxed to death, run from our homes, marked. These are just questions I'm asking. To the point where Elie's family was supporting the Third Reich. Which side of history are you going to stand on? Where does your soul go after this ends? Do you really think that there's no one or nothing to answer to? Just questions. I pray that we remember that we are souls, that we are way more sophisticated and way more intricate than this bleep blorp corporate bullshit that we try to put ourselves in a box to be likable or whatever fucking thing. I'm telling you right now, if you have a light, I don't care what you do, you will not be likable to Becky at HR. You will not be likable. You cannot fit in with her. So always remember, your health is your wealth. Invest wisely. Okay.